Breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ. Following an NBA Board of Governors meeting early Friday, the NBA is reportedly targeting a July 31st return date that comes via The Athletic. 4 different format plans were also discussed, and the league has yet to zero in on what this return will exactly look like. But the powers that be now have 2 months to organize their return, with a July 31st, the new target. We now welcome an NBA champion and CBS Sports HQ NBA analyst Rip Hamilton. Rip, some new news coming in here with July 31st being the target date for the NBA to return to action. Bunch of different plans were talked over in this Board of Governors meeting, but when you see this news moving forward, what's your initial reaction?
Well, for me, I'm excited to have professional sports back on TV, just like most fans would be. I think for me, talking to some of the guys that's in the NBA and a lot of the key players in the league, they want to play. I mean, you got to remember the last game that they played was March 12th. So I think when you hear about the 4 scenarios that the league and the players have been talking about, one, if you take the best 16 teams and put them in a playoff scenario, I really don't like that situation, only because I feel like you have to have some consolation games before that. Maybe bring all the teams back, do a play-in tournament, because you got to remember, when the playoffs start, players can't take plays off. You know, guys want to win a world championship so bad, and when you have that long layoff of 2 months, over 60 days of not playing competitive basketball, sometimes you got to think about the risk of injury of your players and teams. I talked to one GM, and he was talking about, hey, do he rush a guy back knowing that his team don't really got a chance to win a world championship? So it's a lot of things that different GMs and different organizations got to think about. But I do believe if you're going to start the season and you're going to bring guys back, you got to have some consolation games, maybe some preseason games where guys can get acclimated about playing basketball again.
Rip, let's lay out the 4 scenarios here that were discussed with the Board of Governors. As you mentioned, the 16 teams directly to the playoffs, 20 teams in a group/stage play, 22 teams, games to determine seeding, play-in tournament for the final seeds, and then all 30 teams involved in a 72-game regular season. Of course, they're finishing out the regular season, about 10 games for each team to play to finish out, and then with a play-in tourney. When you look at the 4 scenarios, which one is most realistic for you?
Well, for me, I would hope to see that you can finish the regular season off. I mean, you hear players say that, hey, if I ain't got a chance to compete, especially being in the playoffs, I really don't want to come back. And then you look at a guy like Zion Williamson, a guy that is, missed a lot of the season, especially early in the season. And as a fan, you want to see guys like that play, and right where you see where they're seeing that, they got a chance to make it to the playoffs. So I just believe that, hey, you know what, you bring all the teams back, let them compete at a high level, and then maybe do a tournament style setting, which, Adam Silver was thinking about early in the season when he was talking about, hey, you know what, instead of just having the Eastern and the Western Conference and make the best team play against the worst team, regardless of what conference they in. I like that situation. This is a good time for them to try something out like that, and you still get all the teams acclimated and ready to play basketball.
It also presents opportunity, Rip. We've talked about what this means for next season and the possibility of the NBA starting on Christmas Day, but a more immediate opportunity is getting these faces and these names playoff exposure at a time like this. If you do expand, you're talking about the likes of Zion Williamson, Damian Lillard, all being involved in what they wouldn't have been if the season does come to a close and we go with that standard format. How important do you think it is for the NBA to get these faces back out in front of the people and not just games?
Well, you got to think about it. Even the teams that's not in a playoff race, they've been home for the last 2 months. Guys want to play. Guys are professional athletes. They're used to playing a 6-7 month season and getting an opportunity to win a world championship. So regardless, when you're saying that I've been home for 60-something days, almost 70 days, and I haven't been able to play competitive basketball, And I know that the world needs this, and my competitive juice is up. I just watched The Last Dance, so I'm excited about, basketball. So I just think that you got to give these guys the opportunity to go out there and compete and showcase their talents.
Sorry, I apologize. I was going to say, I know the good folks in Sacramento looking at that full screen would be happy for an expansion to get to the playoffs for the first time in 13 years.
Rip, we saw that there was an ESPN poll with the GMs, and they favored the idea of just going straight to the playoffs. What's your reaction to that?
Like I said, I don't like it at all, because I know from a player standpoint, especially when you got a 2-month layoff. For me personally, when I was with Detroit, we were playing into June for 6 consecutive years, and we only had 2 to 2.5 months off. So that was the time for our bodies to recover. But once we came back into that regular season, it took us time to get our bodies back engaged to be playing in a competitive game. And you got to understand this. When you're playing playoff basketball, you can't take plays off. You can't come into a situation and say, all right, you know what? I'm going to wait till the fourth quarter to start playing this game, because you know that every game counts. I don't know if they're going to do a 7-game series. We don't know if they're going to do a 5-game playoff series. So I think that's still up in the air for the NBA. But I do believe that you have to give guys time to get reacclimated with the game and playing a 48-minute game.
Rip, as a former player, and you have a chance to talk to current players right now, what's their mindset? I know they want to play very badly right now, but what's the mindset of this idea of playing at Disney World, being in this bubble?
Well, I think like anything, they want to play. But I think the more complicated thing is, you got to remember, we have a young league. The average age of NBA players is 23 to 24 years old. So, guys still like to be out. Guys still, want to get out and be around their family, be around their friends. And to be in a bubble, that's going to be very difficult for the young guys. For a veteran guy that's in his early 30s, he understands that, hey, you know what, this could be, one of my only opportunities to win a world championship. So I got to really do everything possible to stay in tune and stay away, because, you don't want to catch the COVID-19, and you got to do everything possible to give your team the best chance to win. You can't always say that to a young guy that's 21, 22 years old, that's still young and still feels a little invincible of injury and other things that happen off the court. So I just believe it's a situation where, hey, you know what? You got to do what you got to do in order to go out and try to give your team the best the thing to do to win basketball games.
Rip, to your point there, you mentioned about guys who have families. The NBA and the NBA Players Association was discussing the idea of having families there at Disney World on site. Is that a good idea or bad idea to you?
Well, I think it's a great idea, because you're not going to be able to keep players away from their families. And the reason why is because as an NBA player, you need that outlet. You don't want to be thinking about basketball 24/7, because it's a lot of stress that comes with that, and a lot of stress with competing, especially trying to win a world championship. So anytime you got your friends, your family, and people that you love to be around, that gives you an opportunity to have an outlet to walk off that basketball court and just free your mind of the game for a couple hours.
Well, while the families might be there, the fan bases will not. And home court advantage has gone out the window, but also likely has the idea that these players are going to be in a place where they can sort of use that momentum that they came into in the season. I mean, you have teams like the Bucks and the Lakers, who we knew were our front runners coming into this stoppage of play. Everyone's coming out of this pretty much flat-footed, Rip. How does one build momentum, and what sort of level of competition do you expect when the return does happen?
Well, first of all, you got to remember, since this pandemic, a lot of guys have been going back to their hometowns or where they got homes at. And I talked to an exec for the Milwaukee Bucks. They had 11 players all stay in Milwaukee during this pandemic. So once the arenas and the gyms open back, the practice facilities open back up, they had the opportunity of guys coming right back in, having 3 to 4 guys in the arena at a time with coaches, getting up shots, getting their condition right. Every team didn't have that luxury. Some guys went back to their home states to be with their family and their friends. So I think it's all about what teams can get their players back to their cities and get them in the gym and being ready for, a playoff run.
All right, so the NBA is targeting a return date of July 31st, a decision on the format expected sometime next week. Rip, I know that you have discussed this before. I want to get your take on it now in terms of a champion, because it looks as of right now we will crown a 2020 champion in the NBA. How are you going to view that champion?
I'm a view them as a champion. I mean, when you think about the lockout that we had in '99, you don't put an asterisk sign next to Tim Duncan. When Tim Duncan goes into the Hall of Fame early next year, because they had to post-date that, you're not going to talk about that championship that when it happened, when the NBA had a shortened season. So you do not put an asterisk next to a team that really put in the body and work, sacrifice some things, because you got to remember, you have to sacrifice a lot, especially during this time, to go out to have your bodies right and your mental focus to go out and win a championship.
Great, Pat. Great perspective there. Appreciate the insight from a former champ in Rip Hamilton here on CBS Sports HQ. Again, the NBA targeting a return date of July 31st. Rip Hamilton, the former NBA champ, joining us here on HQ. Rip, thanks. Still ahead, much more coverage as the NBA targets a July 31st return. We've got more on the other side. Keep it locked. You're watching CBS Sports HQ.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.